This video is a sequel to our previous Anno 1800 seasonal DLC reviews. Please watch those videos first for a breakdown of the previous seasons and the base game. Links in the description. Anno 1800 has reached its last stage of post-release, with confirmation from the Ubisoft Anno team that this title will see the end of its main development after Season 4. This last round of content expansion can be seen as a metaphor for wrapping things up. In this video, we'll take a look at all 3 seasonal packs in chronological order, analyze what they offer, as well as cover their accompanying game updates. So, join us one last time, one last season. This is Anno 1800, the Season 4 Pass Review. With only cosmetic packs and minor updates scheduled for 2023, the developers have ensured that Anno 1800 Season 4 rounds out and completes the New World region, the second most important theatre in the game, and a region which has arguably been neglected in the face of old world expansion and newer places to explore with the previous seasons. But Season 4 does present a fitting finale to everything, with its astute focus on improving this second theatre. With Anno 1800 releasing back on Steam and the wrapping up of development, the Anno team have published probably the most relevant and perhaps required DLCs to date. Furthermore, in this season, each DLC also saw the release of a free scenario, and we'll also briefly touch on those. This season's review coverage therefore includes The Seeds of Change, released in April of 2022 alongside Game Update 14 and the Seasons of Silver scenario. Empire of the Skies, released in September of 2022 alongside Game Update 15 and a Clash of Curious scenario. And finally, New World Rising, released in December of 2022 alongside Game Update 16 and the Pride and Peddlers scenario. We won't cover any of the cosmetic packs in depth as they don't contain any gameplay additions, but they will be showcased in the footage of this video. Seasonal decorations, Industrial Zone, Old Town and Dragon Garden packs were the cosmetic DLCs for this season. Seeds of Change is an interesting blend of various old world DLCs, with the aim of increasing efficiency in the new world. Mechanics from Seed of Power, Bright Harvest, and High Life have been flavorfully combined together to work within the constraints of the new world theatre. In a sense, the revolutionary technologies of the old world have finally been imported into the new world. The major component of this DLC is the Hacienda Complex. Inspired by the plantation estates established in Spanish America, one hacienda can be built per island, acting as a centralized, self-sustaining hub of operations. As a modular, multi-purpose complex that can house populations, it can grow crops, brew goods, and produce fertilizer, all these modules must be built within the hacienda radius, but this radius increases to a fairly large maximum as the island's population grows. Furthermore, they can act as an island's seat of government and its main warehouse. Powerful island-wide policies are unlocked through island attractiveness thresholds. The first policy unlocked, Dietary Restrictions, is a straight-up 30% consumption reduction to the population, so it's entirely worth it just to build one per island purely for this policy. The hacienda itself provides a further plus 100 attractiveness bonus. Hacienda quarters are slightly larger than standard residences, covering a 4x4 area compared to the 3x3 from the vanilla game. However, they can fit double the population, which makes them way more space efficient. This comes with more needs, however. Populations living in hacienda quarters require certain needs such as schnapps and hot sauce for jornaleros and atole for the obreros. Interestingly though, haciendas can support unique agricultural production within their complexes, growing a range of crops that ignore island fertility restrictions and brewing those crops into a variety of commodities. So even though Hacienda Jornaleros need schnapps, you don't need to import them from the old world where they are typically produced, because you can grow potatoes within the Hacienda farm and process them at the Hacienda brewery. These farms take up only 64 cultivation area, and both the farms and the breweries mimic last season's multi-factory, where they can change their products, making them adaptable and efficient. And all those extra needs such as hot sauce and atole, even beer, can all be produced, so it's all self-sustaining really. To improve agriculture even further, a new system of fertilizer is introduced. Fertilizer can only be produced in the New World at the Hacienda Fertilizer Works, which uses dung from surrounding animal farms. Any animal farm within range will produce a steady trickle of dung. Although the rate is not explicitly given, I find that around 2 alpaca farms with grain silos are usually enough to sustain one facility which produces a ton of fertilizer every 30 seconds. Each farm can then construct a fertilizer silo, providing a 100% bonus, very similar to Bright Harvest grain silos for animal farms. Like tractors, fertilizers can also be used in other theatres, such as the Old World. With both of these mechanics, you can get a massive 400% total boost to agriculture production. A few Hacienda-related ornaments are also included. Nothing really noteworthy, but there's some terracotta red brick coloured objects to make a New World themed estate. Seeds of Change features the Seasons of Silver scenario. Players assume command of Vasco Oliveira, disgraced after his debacle at Cape Trelawney. The Viscount is placed in charge of a chain of desert islands, setting up haciendas to mine silver ore and produce silver bars and coins. The islands feature seasonal weather patterns that range from monsoon to drought, with various negative and positive modifiers. Agriculture is difficult as the barren wasteland is devoid of much arable land, so players have to construct the new basin building to irrigate, using mechanics that were introduced in Land of Lions and Bessa region. Progressively more and more difficult delivery quotas must be met to fulfill La Corona's silver demands. Like Bright Harvest, Seeds of Change doesn't have any associated mission or story sequences, and we'll see this for the other DLCs as well, which only have sort of short tutorials. I guess the devs have reserved story content for the accompanying scenarios instead. Activating this DLC unlocks the Hacienda immediately when Obreros are unlocked, so players can use this on existing saves and pretty early on in new saves. Overall, it's an extremely useful, if borderline overpowered DLC that enhances, perhaps even somewhat trivializes the game's agricultural system, if used in tandem with other DLCs, particularly Bright Harvest of course. Although it will be a must-have DLC for record-breaking projects aimed at trying to maximize population versus space. Needless to say, you'll have to do some more tweaking of your farms, but in general, haciendas are too powerful to ignore, and one should be built on every island. All these mechanics also have synergy with New World Rising, we'll get to that later. Game Update 14, however, was released alongside this DLC, but besides balancing changes and quality of life fixes, there were otherwise no noteworthy additions to Anno 1800. Empire of the Skies builds upon the Passage DLC's first great leap into the air, with a new array of flying vehicles and a focus on securing the airspace, but once again adding more substance to the New World region in particular. Most of the fundamental resource change involved with this DLC must be procured in the New World, including the new monument building to produce the new airships. The major concept with Empire of the Skies is the differentiation of airships. Standard airships, as we know, were introduced with the Passage DLC. These have been categorized as the Boreas class of airship, but through the rigid airship hangar, all new types of fast and small or large and sturdy airships can be constructed, adding much needed variety to this theatre of transportation. This new multi-stage monument is the rigid airship hangar. It can be built at either the New or Old World, but since it utilizes resources only found in the New World, it's advised to construct it here. Aluminium is a new construction material smelted from bauxite and coal, whilst helium is extracted from mountain deposits using clay and industrial lubricant. The latter is produced on plantations from saltpeter and fish oil. Once completed, the rigid airship hangar can use either New World helium or Arctic gas to produce a variety of airship designs. Now this is interesting. You can construct airships with either helium, obtained in the New World, or Arctic gas, shipped from the Arctic, if you have the Passage DLC. Ships that are built with Arctic gas actually have much better stats such as increased movement speed and reduced maintenance and cargo slowdown, but they are more vulnerable to enemy fire as they take increased damage. The cargo airship model, called the Zephyr if built using Arctic gas, or the Quetzalcoatl if built using helium, features 8 slots, as much as the Great Eastern Ship, and as an airship, extremely fast comparatively, and it ignores terrain. As a result, I think this ship represents the new ultra late game method of transportation. Also, there are now 2 types of armed airships in the Harpy or Colibri, and the Manticore or Alicanto classes. So yes, aerial warfare is now an actual thing, with all the bells and whistles added with it, such as an anti-air defense structure for islands in the flak emplacement, and the ability to drop bombs. Quite devastating, but this also means that the AI will also begin fielding armed airships with this DLC enabled, and with the ability to drop propaganda pamphlets to sabotage happiness. It is a slippery slope that can get annoying real fast. With the new airship platform and its modules, airships can now transport items, transport mail, or even passively commute populations across islands. That's right, unless you were using a mod. In the New World, you couldn't share island populations like with the Old World's commuter pier. And so here it is, the devs have implemented a legitimate mechanic for a quality of life feature that has no doubt been requested for a very long time. And so you can now focus on one major island to house the majority of the New World population, and commute the workforce to different islands across the region without housing and feeding them separately. It's neat, and it's a prelude of sorts to the DLC after this. A great, lore-friendly addition to Anno 1800 is the new postal service, and this mechanic is separated into 3 levels. You have local, regional, and overseas mail. By constructing post offices, populations living within their vicinity contribute to the production of local mail. Local mail can be consumed on the island as a lifestyle need, boosting tax revenue and population density. We'll go in depth into lifestyle a bit later, but it's a free function to boost population numbers and income, so try to put as many post offices around the islands as possible. They can't overlap their radiuses, so the smaller post box is also useful here. With airships, trade routes can be constructed to move mail across different islands. Again, the connecting islands need an airship platform and an air mail sorting office attached to it. When local mail from one island is transported to another island, it is transformed into regional mail and can be consumed as a separate resource. And so on and so forth. Any mail transported to different theatres becomes global mail, overseas mail. All population tiers, even scholars and tourists will all produce mail. As a result, the postal service is a new ultra late game efficiency method to maximize population numbers even further. If you choose to delve deep into this mechanic, you'll eventually want to set up many air routes with airships fluttering across the world, stopping along all your different population islands, dropping off and taking on mail. However, it doesn't act as a normal resource per se, so it is difficult to balance the trade routes properly, especially if you are delivering mail faster than you can produce. So I like to selectively allow certain population tiers to consume mail only. For instance, I hardly produce enough global mail to fully supply everyone on Crown Falls, my main population center, but I can enable it for farmers and workers as they are the lowest density, and I often struggle to house enough of them for critical agriculture and industries. Empire of the Skies features 8 ornaments for a steampunk 19th century airport theme, and these work pretty well for the New World too. Game Update 15 was a major patch that accompanied Empire of the Skies, with what I consider the biggest free change of Anno 1800, and perhaps one of the final crowning nods from the developers. It's the addition of the lifestyle feature, a new subcategory within the needs tab available for all population classes across all the theatres. This allows population tiers to consume otherwise exotic or foreign goods. Fulfilling these needs aren't necessary for upgrade, they're sort of like luxuries, but they do improve tax revenue and increase the population density. All residents can be connected to the postal service as explained before, with local, regional and overseas mail up for consumption, but other resources can be specifically produced or imported to provide further benefits. For instance, artisans have a new lifestyle needs under the crafts category. If provided with wool, each building can support one more artisan, whilst access to clay further provides another artisan and coin income. This is also featured across the game world. In the new world, jornaleros for instance can also consume work clothes and felt. This works with new population tiers from the other DLCs as well. Tourists for instance can consume leather boots. This feature helps to eliminate wastage, promote late game min-maxing, and increase population density. The cool thing is it's entirely optional, so players can ignore it completely or opt in piecemeal. Some more defense units are also added for free. Flamethrower monitors and flame towers deal greatly increased damage to wooden hull ships, whilst reduced damage to those that are metal hulled, making for an astute early to mid game choice of weapon. The ultra late game is bolstered by the anti-armor gun, which does the opposite, greatly enhancing harbour defense capability against battle cruisers in particular. Finally, in the main menu, this update also added a grand gallery, a storefront to buy cosmetic items using in-game currency accrued from completing the scenarios. Pretty neat, but I don't see the allure of playing the scenarios more than once or twice, so grinding the points can be nullified with the use of mods. A Clash of Couriers is the scenario for this update and DLC, and follows Paloma Valente participating in the Grand Postal Derby. In this scenario, players attempt to defeat several derby rivals by completing challenges before they can. Some of these challenges include fetch quest or sustaining certain productivity targets, as well as maintaining efficient local and regional mail routes across a number of islands. Defeating one rival opens up the next, with progressively harder and harder challenges. Defeat all the contestants in the time frame and you get the gold prize. Clash of Couriers helps players master the postage system by min-maxing, but honestly it was otherwise quite a boring scenario. Let's face it, Empire of the Skies is a completely optional DLC. It's similar to Docklands or Botanica, as it doesn't really fundamentally shake up the gameplay loop, it just layers some more variety on top of it. This is one of the few Anno 1800 DLCs that has been essentially outshined by its accompanying game update, with Game Update 15 and the lifestyle feature in particular proving to be the more pronounced addition for veteran players. In fact, Empire of the Skies may prove to be a hindrance to some as it opens up combat in the airspace. Adding this DLC to save games allows the AI to also field armed airships, forcing another theatre of war the player must focus on. The postal service, although a creative and immersive feature, is another layer of busywork and can be essentially ignored in place of other lifestyle goods. Finally, Empire of the Skies seems to make the Passage DLC redundant. The end objective of that DLC was the creation of airships, and with this DLC's added variety, there seems little reason to play with both, especially since Arctic hangars can't produce the newer models. More testing and evaluation will have to be made, but this is the first instance I think where two Anno 1800 DLCs actually clash together in an anti-synergistic manner. With an impetuous degree of finality and completeness, Anno 1800's New World Rising is one of the most dramatic expansions and greatly enhances the productivity, interactivity and fun of the New World region, a crowning jewel set to finish off Anno 1800's DLC content. This includes a major expansion to the size of the new world, pushing the borders further to the northwest and northeast. And no, you don't have to start a new save to unlock these features. Existing saves that enable this DLC will still get a map expansion whilst keeping the entirety of their previous new world the same. The accompanying game update 16 did add some new island seeds for the new world however, so it may be worth your while to start a new save anyway. The centerpiece of this expanded region is the new island of Manola, and immediately it resembles a continental-sized building space similar to Cape Trelawney's Crown Falls. On this island there are plenty of resources and an immense amount of building space to become the main population center of this region. It even has synergy with the previous expansion as it will spawn bauxite mines and helium deposits as well. With this DLC, electricity is also available for use in the New World. This provides a crucial productivity kick to the New World industry as one can imagine, but there's also further uses in agriculture. Pastures in the New World also produce a secondary product if electrified. Saltpeter from llamas, milk from cows, and feathers from Nanda farms. These are used in helium, ice cream, and samba feather production chains respectively, so it becomes a crucial part of some resources. On Manola itself is the site of a hydroelectric dam, a multi-stage construction monument that once fully built, provides electricity to the entire island. I love this feature in the first Anno 1800 scenario, Eden Burning, and I remember being hopeful the dam would feature in the future. Well, here it is. Funnily enough, in my seed, Manola actually spawned with oil, so I ended up building power plants and train infrastructure well before I even started constructing the dam. But I did learn recently on Reddit that it's randomly seeded, so some Manola islands can spawn without any oil. Some food for thought. A new population tier for the new world is also introduced, the Artistas, representing the third and final population tier for this region. Artistas come with a range of new needs and resulting production chains. Soccer balls, mezcal, perfumes, and scooters are some of their new needs, whilst ice cream is a favorite luxury. They get progressively quite complicated. I mean, take a look at this abomination of a production chain in fans. And with the lifestyle mechanic, Artistas have their own range of lifestyle needs, and lower tiers such as Jornaleros also consume various new goods introduced such as soccer balls. Artistas also enjoy some new buildings. Beaches are a new public service. These must be placed at the coast and extend their range across much of the island, with some modular cosmetic items to pair with it. Whilst the Samba School and cinemas require goods to be produced in order to offer their services, similar to restaurants and cafes from Tourist Season DLC. Like engineers, they also eventually require electricity, with Manola Island's wide source of hydroelectricity a great location to concentrate Artistas. Synergy with Seeds of Change, there are also Hacienda Artista quarters that can fit a larger amount of population, but with exclusive needs that need to be met. At 6,000 Artistas, the Grand Stadium is unlocked, the premier monument for the new world. Once again, this monument is built over multiple stages, each requiring huge amounts of reinforced concrete, which will have to be transported from the old world. Once complete, the Grand Stadium operates very similar to the World's Fair, hosting tournaments that give a permanent influence bonus. When a tournament is announced, players have some time to provide assorted resources. The more that is supplied, the higher the attraction bonus during the tournament and the higher the influence reward after it completes. Again, very similar to the World's Fair. This is a double whammy of a concept. It not only adds another late game objective to the new world, since the Grand Stadium is not restricted to just Manola, it provides also a quick influx of one of the rarest resources in the game, another source of influence. But that's not all. After the competition ends, a Golden Goal Festival occurs across the island for half an hour, providing an immense happiness and income bonus. Finally, the DLC features the ability to upgrade emergency services. Fire, police, and hospitals can be upgraded to advanced versions that cover greater areas, reduce disaster chance further, and, if supplied with certain goods, dispatch all their teams at once. Fire extinguishers, police equipment, and medicine are the new production chains exclusive to the New World to facilitate this feature. The DLC also comes with some beach-themed ornaments, something a bit different that meshes well with the sand texture of both the New World and Old World, and obviously has cosmetic synergy with the beach public service itself. However, I was a bit disappointed there weren't any more New World themed cultural and city ornaments, as even though Seeds of Change and Empire of the Skies provided some, there is a clear lack of them, and this season's focus back on this region has no doubt highlighted the lack thereof. Game Update 16 expanded the lifestyle pool further. Artistas have their own range of lifestyles, and the new public service buildings have become lifestyle choices for both jornaleros and obreros. Quality of life has been improved with multi-move. By highlighting a rectangle area with the relocate function, players can move multiple buildings at once. And the construction menu has been vastly improved with proper categorization between buildings, cosmetic items, and ships. With the game's continuous influx of cosmetic packs, this organization was much needed, as the vanilla menu was bloated with confusing submenus and groupings. Now cosmetic items are sorted by the vanilla base game, by each seasonal pack, and by each cosmetic pack. Pride and Peddlers is the accompanying scenario alongside this DLC. Representing a considerable increase in difficulty, this scenario sees you take over Madame Kahina as she allies with the Artistas of the New World, attempting to repatriate artifacts stolen by other colonizers. In this scenario, populations do not generate income, and so cash flow is almost always decreasing. In order to offset this, players must sell off goods to the other factions, with a fluctuating market system dictating the price of commodities, and player story choices also affecting the market. There is also a black market system. Purchasing these goods for consumption provides increased population and gives some revenue. After selling enough trade goods and accruing enough money, you can buy back lost cultural artifacts and exhibit them at a museum. Repatriating cultural items is a relevant topic of discussion in our society today, so this is one of the better Anno 1800 scenarios, as it's not only mentally engaging, but also serves as an advanced tutorial, especially to newer players trying to grasp the intricacies and nuance of the trade system. And it introduces new systems I find interesting enough to add into the base game. The supply-demand market mechanics, trade embargoes, the black market to be able to access potentially powerful but expensive consumer goods, and a new way to generate fertilizer with an outhouse based on population. These are small changes that can be added with future game updates. For the last seasonal pack of Anno 1800, New World Rising is a fitting finale. It's similar to Sunken Treasures in its magnitude and scope, but for the New World. By adding a mega-sized island here, a third population tier, electricity, and endgame monuments, there's now more interactivity in what was previously considered a backwater region used purely to extract resources from. With this DLC, the New World becomes a major theatre in its own right that rivals the Old World's Cape Trelawney, with all the Central and South American flair to go along with it. Seeds of Change is considered a quintessential DLC purely for its agricultural productivity bonuses. Like Bright Harvest, you end up just saving so much space that it's quite frankly necessary to have if you envision diving deep into this game. Oh, was I just talking about fertilizers? Sorry, the rest of the DLC is okay, I guess. I'm only joking, the Hacienda complexes also help the efficiency loop. 9 out of 10. Unfortunately, this DLC may actually inhibit the Anno 1800 experience rather than complement it. The introduction of aerial warfare is a double-edged sword, and although I quite enjoy the concept of a postal service, it's not as groundbreaking as other concepts introduced in other DLCs this season. Although the new airship designs make transporting goods quite efficient, so there's that. I would say it's an optional purchase, 6 out of 10. The developers always seem to leave the most ambitious expansion for the season last, and New World Rising continues that tradition. With great synergy alongside Seeds of Change, This DLC's massive Manola Island adds space, electrification, and monument building that breathes fresh air into the New World region. Because players will always have to jump back and forth to the New World, this expansion's features will entice them to stay a little longer with the sun-swept beaches and tropical waterfalls. 10 out of 10. At $24.99 US, Season 4 is the same price as Season 2, and both of these are the most expensive out of all the passes, but considering the amount of content in revitalizing the New World, it makes a lot of sense. Despite the continued bloat and weakness of the Empire of the Skies DLC, I still think Season 4 is actually one of the stronger seasons and an enjoyable end to Anno 1800 development. 8 out of 10. Season 4, as Anno 1800's final season, fittingly focuses on the second most important region of the game, and it closes it out with some degree of flair and style. And with that, Anno 1800 has definitively finished with its seasonal content, as the developers have confirmed only cosmetic packs and minor updates going forward, and are moving on to future projects, hopefully more Anno games like this one. With this conclusion of sorts, I want to take the opportunity to recap the Anno 1800 franchise with one final video before we too say our farewell to Anno 1800 content on this channel. My next video will be analysing all the expansions in a conclusive roundup of sorts to evaluate them once and for all together. You can click that video here or on the link in the description when it drops. And of course, thanks to our patrons for funding these reviews. You too can support our channel further by pledging as little as $1 a month.